Whenever you're ready.
Alright. Alright, so how many people recognize this name? Katsushika Hokusai? No one? I thought so. So what about this image? You guys probably would recognize this, right? It's a really well-known Japanese art print. And the artist is Katsushika Hokusai. His works are very influential in both during his time as well as now. To me, he's an inspiration because his works, when he works towards his art. He works to perfect his art, and that's why I feel somebody like this should be recognized, because to me, he's an inspiration. He should be an inspiration to anyone who focuses on any kind of craft. I'll be looking at the general background about Hokusai, and then as well as his influence of at his time, as well as afterwards. So I'll start by briefly talking about Hokusai as well as his works. Today, Hokusai is recognized as a well-known Japanese artist, the most well-known of his time. He was most popular during the 18th century, and he's also like a printmaker, painter, illustrator during the Edo period, which is equivalent to Tokyo right now. He's a ukiyo-e artist, and ukiyo means floating world or sorrowful world. Ukiyo-e is the portrayal of this world. And it's hard to define what ukiyo-e is, but it's described as an atmosphere of transience, and it is a unique product of the socio-economic changes that occurred in the Edo period. And the goal of this art movement was to capture the essence. And so ukiyo-e artists such as Hokusai was trying to capture the capture the atmosphere of whatever subject they were taking. His most recognized work, which is the print that you just saw, is called Under the Wave off of Kanagawa from the series 36 Views of Mount Fuji. The majority of his works are woodcut prints, which is usually when the artist designs, and then he would hand it off to a publisher, which would carve the designs off of like usually cherry wood or something, and then push ink on it, and then impress it onto a piece of paper. Prints from these houses are usually for profit, and they're usually the more popular a print is, the more likely it is to be printed. This piece is the most iconic Japanese art piece of all time. One reason for it is because of its color. Its blue color is, according to Gus, a new color at the time. It's more like a cobalt blue, and it's called bero. And at that time, it was imported, so it was something brand new. People liked it, and it was estimated that there was an initial 500 to 1,000 runs, and then eventually it was reprinted 4 different times with a total of 8,000 prints in total. So that would be like the #1 bestseller ever in Japan. And now that I've given you an overview of Hokusai as an artist, as well as his prints, I'll point out like the influences that he had. The most notable influence was on the art style Japonisme, which is, according to Genova, a presence of Japanese painting styles and techniques, motifs, and compositional approaches. The West had a newfound obsession with Japan at the time, and during that time they had like a mania where they would bring stuff over from Japan, and a lot of times the art of the West would be influenced by this Japonisme like movement. And so what Japonisme is Genova describes as a problems with fidelity to the original, the relationship of the literal to the metaphoric. So basically, they were not trying to take what they saw and draw it anymore. They were trying to imitate the feeling, which is what ukiyo-e is. So he influenced the art at the time. And then many artists were influenced by his art, including Monet and Jackson Pollock, which were both really influential expressionistic and impressionistic artists at the time. Today, the most notable influence would be on manga. Manga he created, right now manga is a huge industry in Japan. Gravette, the author of manga, 60 Years of Japanese Comics, says that there is, of all the publications, 38.1% of all publishing totals in 2002 or of manga. It's integrated into pop culture, and manga means rapidly executed, or man in manga is rapidly executed or thrown off, and ga means drawing, and together it means whimsical sketches. And what he created it for, Hokosai did, was to teach his students at the time the styles of his art. Today, he's influenced many aspects of it, including like the audience, which is for the general audience. He made it cheaply so that they could be printed and given off, or printed and sold off cheaply. Like today, for example, Shonen Sunday, a huge manga, like, what is it, book, could be sold for like $2 for like a total of like 400 pages of print. A similar process, because they both have to have publishers to publish their works. They're both stylistic in nature. They use lines and are usually simplistic and flat in nature in order to show like a stylistic change from being really detailed to like being to like the drawings. And the subjects are also high in context. According to Blood, which is the author of Floating Worlds of the Ukiyo-e, high context means people prefer to use more implicit and unclear messages and ambiguous messages, and then have like the people look for the context to figure out what the meaning is. It's more likely to take context from around the words rather than having the context fully stated in the words. And thus both images and words are needed for these mangas. Now that I've talked to you about the influence of Japanese in manga, I just want to wrap this up. So to rewind, I've talked about his general background and his print Under the Wave of Kanagawa, and then some of his